Hello, everyone. We have just reached the end of Folgate's AI month, and to wrap it up, I'm joined by Jenny Nicholson over in the US, who is just going to give us some closing comments from her perspective on the Folgate AI month, and also just a few little insights into AI and where it's going in the next few weeks, and a few things for everybody to think about. So, Jenny, hi.
Hi, Dave.
I'm going to start with the very first question, as it is the end of the April AI month. As we wrap it up, how's it felt to be a part of it, and why?
I really like it because part of the thing that I often struggle with when it comes to AI is there are so many different parts. There's learning, there's building, there's training, but then there's also sort of talking in public about what you're doing, about what you're learning, about what you're building, about how you're training. And often I find that hard. You know, it's hard to find the time, it's hard to be consistent. And so the idea of a focus month where a group of people who are all obsessed with the same thing get together and make a point of sharing out their knowledge, hosting events, doing it all together in a structured, focused way has been really nice. You know, I really believe in the power of constraints. I really believe in the power of a good deadline. And so I think AI month gives us all of those things. And it's also just been really awesome to see what a talented group of people Folgate Advisors has collected.
That's great to hear. And you were part of our conversation with Maya from Provoke Magazine earlier in the month, which was a brilliant way of bringing together yourself plus some of the other experts from within Folgate Advisors. And it was clear from that you personally have a very unique style and approach to this, and passion areas, because it's a big topic. You can't go across all of it and do everything. So what would you say has been or is the red thread that goes through all of the Folgate offering and the advisors?
I think the thing that I really love the best about this group is that everybody's a comms expert, right? Everybody understands the space. And one of the things that I think is really important to remember is that when it comes to working with AI, subject matter expertise is the most important thing. I work and spend a lot of time with really talented AI engineers. And the thing they struggle with the most is they have the technical knowledge, they have the knowledge of the model, but they don't always have experience in the working world. They don't always have really developed domain knowledge. And anybody who's ever tried to ask, ChatGPT for something really specific to their business knows that if you don't understand the domain, you're not going to get great results, because so much of it comes from having subject matter expertise to understand how to apply it. And so I think that thread of people who are super senior, super experienced comms professionals first, and who have then gone on to develop this really rich, varied, advanced knowledge in the technology, that sweet spot can be really hard to find, because you see on the one hand super technically advanced people who don't understand the domain, and if you spend 5 minutes on LinkedIn, you see a lot of domain experts who talk like they know what they're talking about, but anybody who knows what they're talking about knows that they're just spamming that "let AI write it for you" button on LinkedIn, so it sounds good, but if you really sit with it, they're not actually saying anything. And so I think that combination of expertise and sort of advanced experience with this emerging technology is something that you don't find very often.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's one of those topics you only have to be marginally more knowledgeable than the next person to be pretty smart, but it doesn't.
What is it? If there's a bear, you don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun the person next to you. Is that the?
Absolutely. Just get a better pair of trainers than the other person. So my third question, this is going to be a tricky one, because a year is a long time in AI. I mean, hell, a day can feel like a long time sometimes. But if you were to just take a step back and think about what's coming in, say, the next 3 to 6 months, that's going to be really key and is going to influence, particularly the comms space, what would you place your hat on? What would your guess be?
On the technology side, I think anybody who says they know is full of it, because we have what the companies who are making this technology are saying is possible. And then we have the actual experience of using these things, which you find is often really disappointing. But as we know, it feels like every week something new comes out that changes all the rules. So on the technology side, I think part of it is recognizing that nobody knows. So I think what's actually more important and more interesting to focus on is the human side, because we can kind of predict. So a couple of things that I see coming in the next 3 to 6 months is we're going to see more companies being less okay with experimenting and like thinking about it and being like, if we're going to spend this amount of money, we need to know that it's having some sort of an impact, right? You know, AI budgets are going to go up, but I suspect that the expectations that they're going to show value are going to start really going up too. The other thing that I think is going to be increasingly something, especially on the comm side, that we really need to think about is this continuing degradation of our information ecosystem. This idea of what is true, what is real, what can you trust, is going to increasingly be a really big deal. And that idea of what counts as a reliable news source, what counts as an expert, are going to continue to be really important questions. And then I think what you'll continue to see is what we've seen already is while we have these broad level conversations, while people in leadership are often still thinking about this as sort of like, we have to find the right platform to buy, as though you were looking for a project management tool and choosing between Asana and Jira, you have individuals all over the place who are really digging in and discovering things that are possible with this technology. So I think you'll continue to see this sort of, I don't want to say divergence, but I think there will continue to be this divergence between people who are really understanding the power of augmentation and really leaning into that. And then people who are still sort of looking for, you know, is there an AI that can do this entire job for me? And I think that's going to continue to be the thing. And so, you know, in 2 years, will there be an AI that can do the whole thing for you? Maybe. I have no idea. Is there an AI that can basically just outsource an entire job function or an entire department right now? No, there is not. And so it's going to be increasingly important to be able to have advisors who understand both the technology and the domain in which you're working, so that they can help you understand what's actually possible. You know, in my day job, you know, I started working at an agency because I really wanted to dig in. I really wanted to spend a lot of time with the team. And what I love about Fulgate is that I can still also do the training and the awareness building that is really important to me, because I actually feel this sort of calling to get as many people as possible to understand this technology. And this idea of really needing a group of trusted people that you know aren't trying to sell you a pipe dream, that you know understand the challenges that you're facing, and that you know you can count on to get you from where you are to where you want to be, is, I think, just going to be increasingly important. And I know that sounds like a sales pitch, and it is not a sales pitch. It's just the truth. It's just the truth. You know, one of the things that myself and Andrew and several other Fulgate advisors have is we've been working with this technology for years now. I had this realization the other day that one of the reasons why I'm so good at working with large language models is I started working with large language models before they were nearly as good as they are now. They were not as smart. And most importantly, they had 4,096 tokens of memory of the amount of content they could remember, which is, a token is about 75% of a word. Now you have Gemini from Google that has 1 million tokens. When you only had, you know, we'll say 4,000 words, to be able to get something good out of those 4,000 words required a ton of experimentation. It required a ton of testing. It required a ton of what I like to call fucking around and finding out. And there's no way to start from zero today and be able to like build that expertise by yourself quickly, because not only have the capabilities changed, but also the constraints that forced us to learn how to make the most of this technology aren't there anymore, right? It's like learning to film on a Super 8 gives you some skills that when you're working with a red camera and have never touched any older technology, you don't have that knowledge. It's like, the people today who are software developers who never worked, as they say, like close to the metal, are benefiting from the knowledge of people who actually started way earlier. And we're still in that very early phase, but having expertise that you can trust, that you can count on, is just really, it's really important. And with something like a consumer technology that you can use ChatGPT for free, that everybody can touch it, that everybody can get kind of good results from it, it's really tempting to think that you either go buy something or you give everybody a license to Copilot and go for it. And that's the other thing that I think is really interesting. Sorry, I'm rolling. I'm almost done wrapping this.
You keep rolling.
It's a really big deal that I think that people aren't thinking about too, is that if your company is on Google Workspace, every single person in your company now has free access to Gemini, to Gemini's more advanced tools. And as we know, one of the biggest blockers to adoption has been that until now, if you wanted to get your team on it, you had to pay for a 25-month per seat license for everybody in your agency, in your company. And now you don't have to do that anymore. So one of the biggest blockers to adoption is gone. But now, okay, you have everybody in your company has access to this technology. Okay, now what? Now what? And so I think that's going to really be, if I had to wrap up this incredibly long rambling answer with what I see coming in the next 3 to 6 months, is it's going to be a lot of companies saying, now what?
Interesting. So I'm going to go back to one of the points you mentioned at the start on that, and that's about economics are going to get tougher. Things are starting to get tougher already. Budgets are going to be squeezed. That's going to be on the client side. That's going to directly impact agencies as well. So naturally, people are going to want to get better returns for their investment, of course. Over the AI month, we've covered a lot of things. We've talked high-level strategy. We've talked about what's coming down, down the pipeline in the AI world. We've also gone down into some of the nuts and bolts. We had a great session yesterday with Stuart, who talked us all through how to use Copilot. And I think a lot of eyes were open just in terms of the complexity of the number of versions of Copilot, what they can do and how you use them. It was a really interesting session. If you were a leader in a comms function today, and all of those sort of macroeconomic pressures are playing with you, and you had to decide, what am I going to do? How am I going to start? What's going to be the next thing I do? Where would you start?
I would stop thinking about what's the AI adoption strategy for my company. I would stop thinking about how do I get other people in my company to use this technology. What I would do is I would take whatever platform I had access to. I would stop worrying about which tool is the best tool. I would use whatever the one that my company has access to, whether that's Gemini, whether that's Copilot, whether that's ChatGPT, whatever it is that your company has determined, whatever it is that you can use without worrying about data, whether that means that you have to pay yourself for that access. So one of the things that I do is for myself, even though it's just me working on Queen of Swords, I've always had a ChatGPT team subscription, even though it means I'm paying $60 a month for 2 seats, even though it's just me. I have a Claude team subscription, even though it requires me to pay $150 a month, but even though it's just me, because I wanted to know that I could use this technology without worrying about my data getting taken, used for training. But a lot of companies, like I said, they already have Copilot access. If you're on a Google Workspace platform, your company already has Gemini access for free. Gemini 2.5 Pro Experimental is one of my, if not my favorite model these days. It's incredibly advanced. So stop worrying about which thing to use. Use what you have and start using it. Start using it and get the words efficiency and productivity out of your mind, because that's not what this is about. If you continue to only think about efficiency and productivity, you're doing the same thing that we accuse our clients of, that we accuse the world of, which is trying to squeeze people to get more out of them for less money. And, be the change you wish to see in the world. Start using the technology. I always tell people that if you haven't built the habit, it's a habit like anything else. Ethan Mollick, who's an MIT professor, one of my favorite thinkers in the space, says you cannot understand the potential of this technology until you have spent at least 10 hours and one sleepless night just exploring, just understanding. Because if you're going to be tasked with helping move your company forward, how can you do that if you don't understand what it actually is, how it actually works, what it's good at, what it's not good at? One of the things that I find a lot is that, the models will often tell you, like, when they're really you're really getting good results and they're into it, and the role play, it's all a role play. Their human simulators is really strong. The model will tell you, give me 24 hours and I'll get back to you. And if you don't know, often many people, this is not an uncommon thing, will come to me and say, I've been waiting 24 hours and I haven't heard anything. And I'm like, oh, baby, no, it's hallucinating. It's very into what you're asking it to do, which is a great thing. That means you actually got it deep. That means you actually got it locked in. The downside is now it thinks it's a real person, but it can't actually proactively send you a note. So what you want to do is you want to say, hey, it's been 24 hours. Can't wait to see what you've got for me. How do you know that unless you experiment with it, unless you're willing to try, unless you're willing to make mistakes, unless you're willing to say, hey, can it do this thing? And 60% of the time you might find out no. But 40% of the time, if 40% of the time you find that this technology can assist you in some awesome way that you wouldn't have expected, that's a pretty good return on investment. Heck, even if 20% of the time. And another thing that I tell people is, like, it might not be able to do 100% of the job, but even if it can do 20% of the job way better than you expected, that's 20% of the job that you've got support with, that's 20% that you can put toward a different kind of thinking. Or that 20% that it offers you might be helping you look at your job, look at your challenges, look at the world in a completely different way. So that idea of getting in there, trying it, not worrying about, am I doing this right? Am I being efficient? Am I being productive? Just, what can this do? Fuck around, find out. If you currently have your new tab on your browser window set to open Google, when you open a new tab, change it so that whenever you open a new tab, it opens whatever model you've decided that you're going to use. And do everything that you would do for a week in the model. So if you're going to write an email in the model. Not have it write the email for you, but write an email in the model just to see, or have it write it for you and see how you feel. And you'll learn quickly that the way they write sounds like a large language model wrote it for you. And you'll learn quickly that, I don't like to receive emails where it's clear that a large language model wrote it. And so you can say, hey, I don't want you to write my emails for me, but I have a lot of emails. What are some ways that you can help me that don't involve you writing it for me? Ask questions. Ask questions. Get in there. Use it often. Ask questions, be curious, build your own knowledge so that when the time to start thinking about matter adoption, when the time comes to evaluate these companies that I know, I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting emails every day from random companies trying to sell me AI solutions. And if you don't really understand at the core what a large language model is, how it works, what it can do, what it can't, you can't actually evaluate these sales pitches you're getting.
Yeah, so that leads me on to my next question. And feel free to do a bit of self-promotion here. That's absolutely no problem at all. So you're absolutely right. There are literally millions of companies, people, businesses out there offering AI solutions. Most of them sound the same. Most of them sound amazing. Most of them sound like they're going to absolutely revolutionize your business, your personal life. Just about everything is going to get better engaging with them. Foldgate's fairly new. We've only been around 5-6 months. So the team is fairly new. You've told us what excites you about the team, the red thread we've got. Why do you think a leader in the comms space should be calling Foldgate? What are we going to be able to offer that these other solutions don't necessarily offer? What's unique about Foldgate and our team?
I think what makes Foldgate special is this sort of collection of experts who all share subject matter domain expertise, but are interested in different parts of the process and in supporting companies at different levels. So you have people like me. I love speaking. I love inspiring people. I love showing people what's possible. I'm not interested in spending 6 months embedding with a company to lead their their AI transformation efforts. I don't have the attention span, and that's not where I'm going to be best. But there are people at Foldgate who do that, who love doing that. You know, someone like Rob loves digging in and spending a lot of time really thinking about these sort of system level transformations. And so you're able to actually, in some ways, sort of assemble your SWAT team with whoever you want. You know, you might start with somebody like me, who's there to change everybody in the company's perspective on what this technology actually is, on how to use it for creativity, for expansion, for possibility, instead of just for efficiency and productivity. But then you might have some people who really are going to dig in and speak very specifically about how to use this in the day-to-day of what comms people do. And then you're going to have people at Foldgate who, if you want to, like I said, do that hardcore, full-on architecture, thinking about data, thinking about pipelines, thinking about how the whole system fits together, you're able to do that versus trying to go find like different subject matter experts with the technological knowledge separately. You're able to, I really don't want to use the phrase one-stop shop because it sounds so corny, but like sometimes you got to call in what it is.
Well, yeah, and that's
thing that I thought was really interesting. So sorry. One of the things that I've actually really gotten from being part of this group that is really valuable to me is that we're all over the world. I'm an American, and one of the things that's really funny is that the advisors that I've met through this group, I have gotten such a different perspective on the world. I've learned so much. And, you know, being in America right now in 2025, being connected to people in Europe, to people in Asia has been to people in South America has been like so valuable, you know. And also, you know, if you're a company working in Europe, a company working in America, a company working in Asia, you know, a company working in Australia, you have different cultural norms, you have different expectations, you have different time zones. There are all these things that are like from sort of the most philosophical all the way to like the most logistical, that, you know, having a group of experts who share some things, but who have different focuses, different talents, different interests, and live all over the world has been, that was something I didn't expect to be one of my favorite things about this group, but it really is I've learned so much more about my craft, about the technology, and also just about being, it sounds really corny, but being a citizen of the world. That feels like such a gift to me selfishly, but I think it's a gift to anybody who wants to work with us.
That's cool. That's cool. I always like to know what are experts doing with their own expert subject matter expert material. So question for you on this one. After this call, after this video, what is going to be your personal first use of an AI tool or any kind of AI professionally and also personally? Because I know that you embed it in your personal life to a huge level, and it's fascinating listening to you talk about that.
So on the professional side, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down, I'm going to open up Claude, where I have a project where I, you know, have been working at my full-time job for about 3 months. And I have a Claude project where I work in it every day and I save a log of my day. So it gets smarter about me every single day. And so I'm going to open that up. I'm going to say start Friday, April 25th, and then I'm going to get to work. The thing that I'm working on right now is I'm building a pretty complex system that involves building a custom website that does some API calls to get some information, and then actually one click sends the information after it's been transformed to Airtable to make things easier for everybody I work with. And then on the personal side, tonight, I'm going to finish a game I started on Wednesday night when I had a random idea, which is called White Smoke. And you play to try to get yourself chosen as the next Pope. And I'm hoping to have that done by Monday so that I can share it with the world. I'd like to beat the actual conclave.
That is fascinating. That is absolutely fascinating. So Jenny, look, from myself and from everybody at Folgate, and I think from everybody that's benefited from all of the content and everything we've been sharing over the whole of April in AI month, just a huge thank you. Final word I want to be from you. What would be your final comment closing off on AI month?
Don't wait. Don't be intimidated. Don't feel like you have to know how to do it before you try it. Be willing to fuck around and find out. And don't be afraid to ask for help, because nobody has the time to do a full-time job, to be a grown-up, to have a life, and to be the most advanced AI experts in the world. Like, you can't do all of those things. So it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to look to people to help you get started. But also, there's nothing in the world that's going to replace just spending time. And if you can fuck around and find out and get over the hump of feeling dumb, that's where a lot of the magic is going to come in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.